Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the stream. Do I sound like a streamer, guys? Um, no, but welcome to the stream. I'm going to be continuing with the forearm studies. A few things I do want to jump into, or at least like announce, is I think instead of streaming from like 1, I'm actually going to change that schedule to, I'm thinking 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern time. More so because this is really cutting into the day for me. There's like quite a few things that I want to be on top of, and it'll be a little bit harder to do if I'm cutting through and streaming from 1 to 3. And for now, I think I'm going to lean into keeping these streams a bit shorter. So an hour, maybe an hour and a half instead of 2 hours. So I'm gonna just jump into the stream. Um, it might be pretty quick. A lot of what I sculpt and talk about, but I'll try to be as informative as I can, at least like while I sculpt. I'm also looking for like more reference for women's arms, because I'm keeping in mind that this is the skeleton of like a woman, so she's going to be not exactly thinner, but it's she's just going to look a little different. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and fix this a bit. Cut these out just for that focus on the arms. And I think where we dropped off was doing the forearm muscles. So I'm going to go ahead and jump back into that. Oops, sorry. Okay. All right. Now we have the brachioradialis, and the extensor carpi radialis, which is posterior. And that's like right underneath the brachioradialis, which I don't think it's definitely like needed to see. But here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and keep making these. I'm going to look at this as reference for now, and I'll do like I did before, where I'll just jump into a web page, and I'll probably open it here and there to get a more exact definition of where different muscles originate and insert and all that kind of stuff. So I do know this should be, it should cover it, but not this much. Alright, let's go ahead and start. Let's jump right into this. It's gonna look this way for now, which is okay. Excuse me. Ooh. So we'll leave that like that for now. And a lot of this is just like I said before, just keep in mind that most of these muscles, they're very thin. Like you can see here, like all those muscles are here. All of those, well, I mean obviously, but it's just usually people aren't. The average person isn't as defined as like a bodybuilder, or even this defined. The average person isn't exactly that defined. Okay, let's get the flexor groups. So I know when it comes down to the flexors, they originate from the medial epicondyle of the humerus, which is this one here. So let's go ahead and do this and do our extract. So origin and insertion of flexor carpi radialis. So see medial epicondyle of the humerus, and it inserts on the base of the second metacarpal bone. Often attaching. So when it comes down to the metacarpals, technically these right here are the first, but they are knuckles. So this would be where it's inserted, or at least the base. Let me go back to that and get like that proof. Base of the flexor carpi radialis. Well, I'm pretty sure this second and third metacarpal. Pretty sure that's, yeah, proximal, middle, distal. Okay, oh shoot. Okay, so yeah, these are the metacarpals and these are the phalanges, but I definitely remember that wrong. But hey, it's all about learning or getting back into things. So anyways, metacarpals. Okay, so now that I have that understanding, that's good. So it says base of the second metacarpal bone, and that would be this one right here. So here, let's go ahead and grab this. I'm going to put on AccuCurve. I have it set to Alt-A, like a hotkey for it. You can set hotkeys. Pretty straightforward. If you Control Alt and click something, you'll see up here. It'll tell you what you can press to, get that just create your hotkeys. And second, because technically this is the first. So just do that and get this at its origin, which is here. And these muscles, they tend to overlap. So that tends to be what gives a lot of the definition that we tend to see with muscles. Let's turn that off. And I'll inflate or deflate whatever is necessary. Oh, Jesus, it's too slow. So this is the flexor carpi radialis, right? Oh, that is okay. That's my state machine. State tree studies. All right, flexor carpi radialis. Yep. Okay, so here, 3 for my inflate. Let's decrease that just a little bit. I'm actually using my mouse doing this, so it's not going to be the cleanest at the moment. Okay. And just keeping in mind that it's actually underneath the palmaris longus and the oh no, that's the digitorum superficialis. Okay. So that's 2 here. But yeah, just keep in mind that it is kind of pushed to the side here, and it's underneath the pronator muscle, pronator teres. Also underneath. So like even with origins, there's like different levels to it. I think here, if I open this and look at muscles, origin from the medial epicondyle, and maybe I can find an image that highlights where. Okay, yeah. See, so you have the teres, you have the radialis, and then you have the longus, and then underneath that you have the carpi ulnaris, and that's just at least like when it comes to layering the muscles, that's something to keep in mind. So you know that if somebody is touching their fingers, the tips of their fingers together, that's like the palmaris longus. That's like that little thing popping up here, the tendon that pops up. Well, usually there's two. Some people have one. Some people it doesn't even show up at all. It's pretty interesting. But yeah, it's good. In my opinion, I think it's good to know the layering of muscles because when it's like depending on where you're sculpting or whatever, especially like the arms and the chest and stuff like that. Because depending on the movement and just like the scapula, like understanding how that moves and which muscles are being activated, etc., etc. It's a great way to understand what it is that you're doing. So anyways, let's go back to this, and we see that the carpi radialis is on top of the longus. So now I'm going to do the longus. It's weird because here it doesn't show up on top of it, but it technically is. Pretty sure it is. The epicondyles of both the humerus and the femur have very similar origins and insertions. Let me look at another one just to, because you know what? Because what we had was like, we didn't actually have like the muscles. We just had these bones that, like medical studies, and you would see, it would be like color-coded origin points and insertion points, and that was super useful. Yeah, you see like the palmaris longus. Well, anyways, all right, let's get back to it. So palmaris longus, same origination, but the insertion of the palmaris longus would be, I believe it's your three middle fingers, so your index, middle, and ring finger, technically, but it's these metacarpals that it inserts into. But here, let's go ahead and look at that again. Origin and insertion of palmaris longus. So the distal half of the flexor retinaculum and the palmar aponeurosis. So an aponeurosis is like, hold on, it's like fibrous connective tissue, similar to like fascia. And you actually see, it's actually on different parts of the body. Most notable would be like the back, or like you can see these white parts on the head. You see here too. Just pretty much any of that white stuff. And I'd say the advantage of understanding this is so that you know, it's kind of like getting a more, because it's aponeurosis basically means that it doesn't exactly move, if that makes sense. So it's for like once you understand the stability of it, then say like you're doing like back movements. Of course, you can keep in mind the bones and stuff like that. Of course, you can keep in mind the bones and like the underlying structure and stuff. But a lot of this, it's not muscle, it's tendon and fascia, so it doesn't exactly move. So it can help you get a better understanding of how to create action within the muscles, if that makes sense. So like knowing how they bulge, opposed to just making bulging muscles based off of just like reference. Which there's nothing wrong. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with just looking at reference, but for me, this is just a fun little thing I want to do. Brachio. What is too? Okay. Well, anyways, let's get back to this. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this as this because this is the radialis, so it's above that. And if anything, what I can do is I can just duplicate this, and then just create that same. And then distal. So this technically has like three, was it? Like three, oh, well, you can see it here. It like splits along these three fingers. Here. see like this right here. There is one connection here on this metacarpal. Well, you can see it here better, like this. A lot of this for the hand, I think as a sculptor, you don't completely need to understand. Oh, that's fine. That's okay. I guess like for me, one goal that I have that I don't know, I guess it's a bit insane maybe, but I don't know, I just always thought it would be cool to just be able to sculpt anatomy without looking at reference. Maybe it's a bit crazy, but I don't know. It just seems like a fun thing to do. For me at least. I kinda wanna do that at some point. I don't think I'm there yet, but I think someday, and it, I don't know. I think with how social media tends to be, or just our current view on success, carpe omeris, is that everything has to be quick, and I don't know, just this idea that like everything that you do, there has to be some financial incentive to become some level of success or to be better than other people in some way. And I don't know, I think, I don't know, for me, this is just one of those things that I think would just be cool and fun for me to do. And I think that's the big thing for me. It's just something that's fun for me to do and kind of like a hobby. And I think it's kind of like the direction I'm leaning into for this. Of course, it'd be fun to like make characters, kind of like growing up drawing Dragon Ball Z characters and just enjoying doing something like that without this desire or a need for it to be a money-making thing, or some thing that you brag about to people. It's something for me, which is ironic considering that I'm streaming. So this is going to be interesting to sculpt because you still want to give it some level of like definition. I think underneath the carpe ulnaris there isn't anything else, and it just hits the ulna, or it just blends into the ulna, and that's like that thickness that. Let's turn this back face. I'm still using my mouse, but that's that thickness that you see over here. This over here, but you see, this is also why when people aren't, when that muscle isn't exactly, and her arm is in a similar position, thankfully, so I can illustrate this a little bit more, or explain it a bit more. Again, just keep that in mind. Muscles are thin. They're very thin. They're a lot thinner than we think, unless the person's like a beast at working out or relatively exercises here or there. So all those muscles are there. You have the pronator teres, which is kind of like, well, it's the pronator teres, and it's also that other insertion of the biceps that kind of innervates into the fascia, which you can like see this as like that indentation there. Okay, how do I draw this again? Okay, there it is, Control D. So you have this right here, which is, because I know this is the epicondyle, and it's going in this way, the pronator. Then you also have, you can even see it, like, oh my god, you can really just see it. Wow. This is the other insertion of the biceps. And then all of these muscles, the flexor group, is like all originating here and just going down this way. Because they insert basically your palm. Just think the insertion's the palm. So it's inserting here. And then any of those other muscles, like you can see this is the, what was it called? The process of the, well, it's on the thumb part, so that means it's the radial tuberosity, I think. So there's that. And again, like for me, a lot of this is just thinking about, you know, just a lot of these bony landmarks as just guides. And you know, I think Ryan Kingsland goes into this like super well, super in depth. So, you know, I highly recommend checking him out if you haven't already. I'm sure you have, but yeah, and then this is the ulna right here. Then of course, you have like the extensor. Oh shoot, let me change the color. And you have the extensor group, which again inserts on the top. Well, it's not exactly on the top, but if you imagine it as the top, it makes it a little bit easier. And these, I believe, they originate, yeah, the lateral epicondyle. So just think, yeah, lat as in like side, outer part. So anything on the outer part, just think of those muscles as inserting here. And of course you can get like, you know, crazy, well, you get more in depth with like than just like labeling it as like that type of muscle group, but generally there's that. Anyways, let's go ahead and get rid of those and continue. So I think next would be, so I did the palmaris longus, the carpi ulnaris, and the carpi radialis. Now there's the flexor digitorum of flexor digitorum superficialis. And I think this is kind of the muscle that gives a bit more of that mass. So it's like right here. And if we look at the insertion, it's split into 4 tendons that travel through the carpal tunnel. That's like over here. But, oh wait, I can do, oops, to see that separation. So this is the palmaris longus. Use my mouse. And then we have the radialis. think the carpi ulnaris is actually underneath the. I think it is actually. I think it's underneath. So we have medial epicondyle. Yeah, I think it might be underneath superficialis, which is right underneath. Okay, it is. This is just a little bit harder to see, and I think some of these might be a bit wrong. A little bit. So we have the flexor carpi pulmonaris, flexor carpi radialis, and then underneath we have the digitorum superficialis. And there's the digitorum profundus, which is underneath that too, but I think this is the one that actually gives it a bit more of that mass that we see. So let's go back to all and just look at that origin. It's a two-headed origin. The humeral-ulnar head, the medial epicondyle of the humerus, and the ulnar collateral ligament. So we know this is the ulna. So it's going to originate in part here. The coronoid process of the ulna, so this, and then in part, the humeral ulnar head, the medial epicondyle of the humerus, which is going to be part of this as well. Superior half of the anterior border of the radius. So superior half, which would be right here, because it's turning. Superior half. Okay, so this part. Okay. Radial head, so that means closer to the head, which is here. And it's the border, so this. So it's in part this, and the epicondyle. That inserts 2 to 5. So these. And it says the tendons into the middle phalanges of the digit, so here. Oh, no, here. Because this would be proximal, medial, and then distal. And these would be the middle phalanges. Okay. So now let's go ahead and get that. So origins would be, again, the half. So this is a ballpark for this epicondyle, or this coronoid process. I should be more specific, but the origin will exactly be seen. So I know that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this one. And let's go ahead and hide these really quickly, just so it's a little bit easier to see. Then I'll start creating those origins. Oh, did I duplicate it again? Oh, okay. Okay, so it'll be this part. It'll be going here. Okay, I gotta see an image for specifics. Okay, yeah. Okay, I'll grab that here so you guys can see that too. Okay. Yeah, so this part. It's right underneath that bulge. Okay, there we go. And then you will be here. Let's just really then we're going to bring you guys to the middle. And I'm not being clean with this, but that's because we'll make it better later. Was it distal or proximal for that insertion? like it's distal there. Ooh, good cadavers. The base. Okay, well, I mean, that's essentially the base. Okay, and I think what, well, okay, I'll get to the fascia in a bit as well, but and this is actually pretty thick, so. And I've joined both of the heads, just so it's a little bit easier. And any of the other stuff, I'll just like just use that inflate. I think I still have to get the back for like the lateral origins of muscles. Okay. And then this, yeah, I'll leave that there. It looks to me though, it's still. Man, it'd be nice to find it though, so you guys can get like an idea of how it looks even. Or maybe this might be a, okay, yeah, maybe this is a good representation. Sure. I'm gonna log in for the phone. There we go. Well, these are the extensors, which still useful. I'll leave it here. Ah, yes. This is good. Okay, so carvi radialis, which is on top, and you can see it there. Like they stack on each other. Femoris longus, carvi. Okay, but this doesn't have all of it. It's probably not showing up because. Okay, it's on the technically bottom. Okay, okay. All right, so let's just have to put it over here. Okay, let's just make sure. I'm probably gonna have to name these so I don't like confuse myself. How does that work? Okay, they innervate. Yeah, in massage school they don't really like delve too deeply and like in depth for the hands, the feet, and the head. So that's like where I struggle still. Oh, let's go ahead and start adding the rest of these. And then this one is flexocarpium. If I look at that, it's right on top of the palmaris longus. Oh no, it's right below the palmaris. So okay, let's just name this real quick. Carpi palmaris. Let's make sure that says flexor. And this is the superficialis. That's gonna be furthest on the bottom. And then if we got the flexocarpi, that's gonna be on top of that. This on top. And then this one is the palmaris longus. Yeah, I should have the flexion to these. So okay, and then this one is, oh, it must be the radialis. And if we look back at that, now we see the carpi radialis is on the top. Then it's the palmaris longus. Then it's the carpi ulnaris. And then it's the digitorum. Like I said, a lot of these, I'll delve into it deeper. Make that seem perfection, or not perfection. Getting into it, but you see, these are carpi ulnaris. You can't really just say that because there's an extensor version of it too, and that'll just make things more confusing. Man, why can't I just put this here? Yeah, these are the deeper muscles. I think the ones we would have to worry about most as character artists would be these two, or at least like sculptors, I'd say, because say you're doing a pose or something. Funny thing about these abductor, the pollicis longus and the pollicis brevis muscle is that like if you even like a thumbs up, if you do like a thumbs up, then I think you have to open your palm too, but just so you can pull the skin. But you'll see like some of these two tendons popping up, and the crazy thing about these is that like there's a pocket there. Not everybody has the pocket or that skin pocket, but some people like they used to grow their nail out, like say like their pinky or something. They would grow that nail out, and they would use sugar booger on it. Basically, they would put sugar booger on it, or sugar candy, whatever it's called. So you know I don't really do that, but and then with the thumb, that pocket is where some people would actually put it because it would give them the exact amount that they needed. So it's two ways. Some people would use their pinky and just scoop it and then put it in their nose and sniff, or they'll put it there in that pocket between the pollicis longus and the pollicis brevis, and then just have have a time. Oh wait, sorry, no. The longest and the brevest, not the closest longest. Abductor, closest longest. It's the brevis and the longest. Those are the two tendons that you see. That's just a funny thing that my professor had shared with the class. I guess to help remember. But anyways, okay, so let's get to the extensor. So lateral epicondyle of the humerus, and it inserts into the four medial digits, 2 to 5. And you'll notice how, everything is like very mirrored in how the body works, and it's interesting. Oops. Actually, yeah, I'll leave it like that. And then do extract, accept, dynamish. Oh shoot. Let's do this. And again, like all these origins for these, the extensor groups is the same. It's a lateral epicondyle. They just insert differently onto the back of the palm. Because technically, that is the back. So let's go here and just AccuCurve. And this is the extensor digitorum. So it's going to be similar to this, where it kind of webs out to the metacarpals. Was it the metacarpals or was it the medial phalanges? Let's double check. Yeah, medial 4 digits. So the middle and distal. Okay, interesting. Middle and distal. So essentially what that would mean would be that, like, because these are the metacarpals, then you have the phalanges through here. It'll be the middle here, and then extending up to the top, because distal means furthest away from the middle of the body, essentially. So I'm just going to go ahead and do one, and then get the others. Just like that, like this. Left and right click does this. Didn't know that. Okay. I'm actually gonna name this extensor digit forearm. And then now extensor carpi radialis. Again, the origin. So all of these are underneath the brachioradialis. So you're gonna see. Okay, so this is that muscle that you usually see right here. You see this? And it's almost like it's under, like it like almost disappears over here. So this is that muscle. This right here. Let's control D. This right here. Because this looks like this. And you have a digitorum, extensor digitorum, which goes like this. And then the other muscle, which is under here, it's like underneath the digitorum, but it peeks out over here. And that's the, where is it? The extensor carpi ulnaris. That's that muscle. Anyways, let's go ahead and do this too. So this was the carpi radialis. Extract, accept. And dang. I'm just gonna do the same thing. And this one, I believe it's underneath the digitorum. I think it's underneath, if I'm not mistaken. And then it just bulges out over here because it inserts, similar to the to its flexor counterpart, the index finger, or the second metacarpal. But here, let's be sure. And that's the extensor carpi radialis. Oh, sorry, longus, because there's a brevis as well under. So the insertion dorsal, which is posterior, of base of the second metacarpal bone. This the same, and the origin is the same. Inferior 1/3 of the lateral supracondylar ridge of the humerus, which it's interesting. So okay, so yeah, I was right. So yeah, this is essentially, see, this is weird. It's not showing up. Oh, I got confused. So the brachioradialis isn't shown here, but it's above this, and this. And I was wrong. It's not. It doesn't originate on the epicondyle. It originates right here on this ridge, right here. Oh well, yeah, supracondylar ridge, and supracondylar just means above condyle. So it's the ridge above the medial epicondyle that is this right here. So if I want to be accurate, I'll probably have to just hide brachioradialis, but. And I'm going to leave it here. I don't remember how far up it actually goes, but there's that. And yeah, no, this is underneath, because that doesn't make sense. It should be underneath here, and this kind of like. See, I was wrong. This actually does overlap a bit. And no, you can see it. It's kind of like what creates that cut here. I'm using, so it's this whole part. And that's right here. can use the elbow as like a way to tell where that epicondyle is. And since it's more like it cuts, okay, yeah, so it cuts here, like this, like that. There we go. And that's the brachioradialis, and that's this one. So you need to be a little bit, let's cut you down a bit. And this can be a bit higher. And if anything, I'll put this up so I can get that visual. And then let's get that insertion. The insertion right here. And honestly, the way I think about it is similar to like, you know, oh my god, this sounds weird, but similar to like clothes where there's those tension points that essentially help dictate the form. It's essentially the conversation about form. Let's just do this for now. Oop. Too much. Pull you out. Just a bit. And then now we can do the extensor carpi ulnaris. And now let's look at those origins and insertions. Extensor carpi radialis longus ulnaris. So like a lot of these, it's so interesting because like the name is like what it does or where it inserts is like in the name almost, you know. Extensor, so extend, carpi. What's carpi mean again? Of the wrist. Okay, see, and you know, think about like carpal tunnel. I just wasn't sure. I didn't want to give like the wrong thing. But anyways, carpi. So you know, extensor, wrist, ulna. So ulnaris. So the ulna. So it inserts onto the ulna. And you can have the other muscles like the radialis that inserts onto the radialis. Anyways, okay, so base of the fifth metacarpal of the dorso-medial side of the hand. So dorso, so technically this is the medial side, because again, like it's more about the speaking about the anatomy from like anatomical position, which is like where your palms are face up, or say you're laying down, your palms would be face up, and that's the anatomical position. So in that sense, that's why this side would be the medial side, which is closer to the middle. So yeah, now when we get into like the idea of like the the insertion, again, fifth metacarpal on the dorsal, which is the top, and medial dorsal side, which would be like over here, well, on top of this. So let's just do that. And again, well, I didn't say it before, but there's actually like a tendon here that keeps a lot of these tight and in line. Not just the fact that there isn't a lot of muscle mass at the wrist, just like tendon that goes above. Let's just come above. Okay. And this one, shoot, I already forgot the origin. Originates from the lateral epicondyle. Okay. And this is actually interesting view here. Okay. Okay. So it'd be like right here. Almost covering the anconeus, and this isn't like a thick muscle. This ain't a thick boy. So all it is increased all the way. Guess my. Let me bring this down so I go to 250. Okay. So yeah, there is some thickness, but this is over that, and this is over that muscle. So there is layering to keep in mind. And I'll add the proper thickness and all that kind of stuff when it comes down to it. And maybe it'll actually be a longer session because it'll actually be kind of fun to, you know, talk about and implement the connection or how these muscles lay on top of each other as well as like fat. You know, I've never really like delved into fat deposits and like how to properly get those looking right. But I have seen that in the anatomy book, which I'm kind of like just, you know, before bed I'll just like look through it really quickly just to get an idea. Let's do this. And you, I'm actually going to, how much geometry is this? Okay. And let's just grab this side and get a bit more of that visual of what's not being seen here. Biceps, maybe long head. Insertion radial tuberosity. What? Bicipital aponeurosis. Bicipital aponeurosis. I just want to see the image. Oh, there we go. I mean, this is kind of a decent one. But it is the aponeurosis. And you'll hear that, well, at least like if you delve into the medical side of anatomy, this is thrown around quite a bit. I mean, not like thrown needlessly, but anyways, let's get a bit more of a visual of that. Because although it does insert underneath, well, this looks like it inserts even lower. Let's do that. Okay, so okay, I get why it said this. Okay. I'm just gonna do this line for now. Actually, no, I'm not. Okay, and I'll make it look way better than this. As a sculpt. a lot of that. Because this is like an offshoot off of the actual muscle itself. Okay, so I think, okay, I didn't do the abductor and the pollicis longus and brevis, but let me do that now actually, because I think it still adds to the arm. These two or three, I guess, but let's go ahead and extensor brevis, pollicis brevis. From the posterior surface. Okay, so let's get this bone open. The posterior surface of the distal radius. So posterior would be behind. Posterior surface of the distal radius and the adjacent interosseous membrane. This tendon passes through the first extensor compartment of the wrist to enter primarily into the base of the proximal phalanx of the thumb. So let's look at an image of that. Kind of like this. Let's just get that going. Going on here? So it's inserting here, and it inserts. So these are the metacarpals, and then the thumb only has two flanges. So I guess it's the proximal base, or the base of the first flange of the. And the other thing that I do want to keep in mind is that it does go through. It goes through. And this is the extensor pollicis brevis, extensor pollicis brevis, and it goes over the extensor carpi radialis, and that would be digitorum, minimi. Oh shoot! I forgot the digiti minimi. It's kind of part of this one. Let me duplicate this and put this cut up here and just do this. Because it does have like the same kind of like, oh shoot, helps, it aids and stuff, but it is its own kind of insertion there. And it's not make that too thin. You know what, I'm gonna pretend that it's, I mean, it's essentially, it is separate, the digiti minimi, but it has the same, like it connects, how do you put it, like it connects here, like this tissue, the tendon, it connects, and then kind of like, kind of like the biceps. Let's just do that. And I'm not making this the prettiest looking thing, but this should actually take up most of that, not this. So, poorly singing this song, but it's the rock band song. Okay, so what was I gonna do? Oh, the extensor. I mean the extensor palliasis brevis. Was it brevis? Okay, it is. Okay. Well, I could have sworn I pulled that off. Ah, it's right here. Okay. Again, goes over the extensor carpi. It still does insert here. I think these might, I guess it'll be a little bit thinner. The pollicis longus, which looks like it inserts in the base of the distal flange. But it too covers the carpi radialis brevis. Oh, it's gonna be fun getting these, actually. It's a little bit better. Okay, so what else? I think. Okay, abductor, pollicis longus. And this one looks like it inserts the base of the metacarpal, the first metacarpal, and origin. Well, it looks like it does cover the pollicis, a carpi radialis brevis muscle. Looks like it covers that too. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to name all of these. I'm going to name all of these in the next stream. And again, like that next stream is going to be around, see, I'm trying to decide if it's going to be at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. because usually my days are around like 5-ish. But I just want to take a little bit of a break from being on the computer. So, you know what? I'm going to try 6. Let's see how that works. I think this. There is a muscle that is not. Okay, it's this one. Yeah, like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and start wrapping this up. But like I said, I think what I might lean into is streaming instead at like 6 p.m. and just continue in that way. And let's see if this kind of aligns a bit more with the thinness, you know, that I'm looking for. I think this would be a bit further. And it's probably going to bulge here because and then all this really needs is just like polishing it. That'll be fun. It'll be a process, but it'll be fun. And then what I can do is I'll just continue with the torso. I think I'm going to do the torso and just connect it to this. Yeah. I guess it'll be a full study. And like the hands, yeah, I think. Because I see all these like thenar muscles and stuff like that, these interossa. I don't know if I want to do that, but I do think I'll do the thenar muscles and the hypothenar muscles because that actually contributes to the, you know, the hands. I don't know if I want to do this though. I mean, I might, but it doesn't really contribute to the overall. I mean, in a lot of ways it does, but it's mostly the fat pads that are on the hands. That does that, like all these folds and stuff like that. It's mostly like the fat pads, but. Yeah, and afterwards I'll continue with the rest of the axial skeleton. The head too, I guess, I suppose. This is probably a bit further in. Alright, well, end of the stream. Like I said, you know, next stream we're going to be getting back into the naming of each of these muscles correctly. That way, you know, it's a little bit easier to know which muscle I'm selecting and hopefully commit it a bit better to memory. And understanding these insertions and origins a bit more. And I think one thing that I kind of want to do as well is lean into understanding like the fat deposits too. Um, from what I'm reading in the Anatomy for Sculptors book is like fat deposits under skin on arms. Art. Pinterest. Better. And it'll show mostly like the torso, but I'm looking for the arm. This is a good study. I think what I'll do is I'll look through my own book because I know that typically there isn't a lot of fat pad that that develops on the wrist. That's why people's wrists and even down here, like our ankles, are kind of skinny. Any of these like bony landmarks that you see. But I'm gonna get into this too. I think I will. Because one thing that always, it doesn't always trip me up, but it does trip me up is like the fat pads at the knee pad. I mean, at the knees. I know there's just like one underneath the, wow, I'm blanking on the name. The knee, what is this bone called again? It's not connected, it's connected to the only tendon. It's like a floating muscle technically, kind of like the hyoid bone. Wow, the patella, there it goes. Yeah, but I do think understanding these fat deposits would be really helpful too before I jump into getting the skin and veins and all that kind of stuff. Well, I think I might do veins before doing skin, just to get another idea of like where they can show up or pop up. Because again, like looking at this reference, you don't see veins at all popping up, and of course it's because it's women. Well, not because it's women, but these women are a bit more slender. Yeah. It's interesting how you can see the acromion right here, though. You see the head. All right, well, thanks again for the people that have joined the stream. I know that most people tend to watch these a little bit later, but again, excuse me. But again, I'm going to go ahead and, do these streams at 6 p.m. the same days, Monday to Wednesday. And hopefully, you're walking away learning something as much as I'm, trying to learn something as well. All right. These are pretty cool. All right. Well, you guys have yourselves a great day. I'll probably drop a few of these into this. Anyways, yeah. You guys have a great day, great week. Hope your Monday started off really good. I am starting classes, so that's actually why I'm tightening up my schedule a bit more. Yeah. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Later.